Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth. I'm the founder of Cisu and the host of the show, as you all already know. And super excited for today. We have one of my favorite Cisu customers here with us. And I have watched this team grow from like 5 agents to about 40 agents now. And like they crush it. And when you have 40 agents in, call it Orange County, San Clemente, Dana Point, whatever, Laguna, all that area, like that is a great area of this country, right? So anyway, today I have Zach, and I want to say, I don't know how to pronounce this last name, but because most of you probably don't, but it's Geisendorfer, right?
Yep, nailed it.
So Geisendorfer, I speak German, so you did not change your name. I'm happy to hear
Yeah.
that. So anyway, grateful to have you on the show today, Zach. Just so you guys know, he has a tremendous sales background. He actually built an ISA business called Loud Profit, then turned into something else. We're going to dive into that today a little bit, but has a tremendous amount of sales experience. He actually has on his LinkedIn and in other places that he's the director of client relations for FAM, but I would say he is the sales leader for FAM. Like he drives revenue. And so if you guys want to drive revenue, you're going to want to listen to this show. Zach, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, tell me, what did I miss? What did I miss about your background that everyone should know?
I think one of the biggest things about my background is I was an ISA for many years. That's actually when I first partnered with Francis for the first 3 years together in the team. Like I was the ISA in the front line driving sales. So I was doing about 130,000 calls a year my first years that I spent with her, which for me, quite frankly, I think was super important because it let me have a crazy high level understanding of what the
Yeah.
consumer wants to hear on the end of the phone. So I think that's the biggest gap that a lot of people either don't hear about or forget, those 3 years of being an actual ISA, before being sales manager.
Yeah, like if you want to be able to teach people how to make calls, if you've made that many calls, you're going to be really good at teaching them that, right?
Yep. And that's essentially what
So,
it is. We realize communication drives production, which drives everything.
yeah, cool. When you met us, our team, along this journey, how long ago was that?
I want to say it was probably about 4 years ago.
Okay, so 4 years ago, if I'm correct here, you had 5 agents at the time. You're an EXP team. Were you already at EXP at that time?
We were not. We were actually with ERA, which a lot of people don't even know still exists.
Oh, wow. I hate to tell you guys, but like, that's a really good upgrade.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Um, like, if you guys aren't part of the rev share model, you should probably check it out. But that's not a plug. That's just like, I know, like, my wife went from being at really one of the brokerages to then starting her own brokerage where she was a franchisee of a brokerage. So it wasn't an independent brokerage, which a lot of people are going independent today as well. And if you're going independent, Sisu is the perfect platform for you. Like it's the only platform you would need if you're an independent brokerage. Anyway, but you guys made that move about 4 years ago over to EXP, which I saw for spring when she made her move to real. It just like made her go from a little Davis County team to like some massive organization across the country.
Yep.
And I sense you guys have done some of that as well. But let's talk about your business. So you guys had 5 agents back then. Well, tell me about your size today and
So as of right now, we're currently sitting at about 32 is where we're hovering. Our goal
32.
is to
Okay.
end the year at 40. So
You're gonna end the year
we'll
at 40.
still end at
So
40.
So like you're at 5 agents, and I know at 5 agents, everybody that has 5 agents, you're frustrated. Team leader's still in production. Spring calls it the messy middle.
Yeah.
I just call it a mess. Like it's like most people when they have 5 agents have no systems. They really don't know how to run a business, you in most cases. That's not always the case. I mean, some people come in and they start the business. You have to start somewhere, right? And they're great business owners. But many of these people go from power agent to team leader. And really, at that point, you don't know how to run a business, right? You don't have systems in place. You don't have, and what do I mean by systems? So let's talk about that, Zach. Like, what did you guys do when you were at 5 agents? How did you get from that small team? Because there's so many people that are in that road, in that place right now that want to get to where you are. Like, what did you do?
So the first thing we did was fail. We thought we had all the systems. We thought we had the biggest word that we learned was replicatable. If you nailed it on the head, Frances was a powerhouse agent. She was the number one buyer's agent for Carlsbad
Yeah.
and led her to want to bring some other agents with her. And we grew rapidly when we first joined EXP from 5 agents to about 30 agents in the matter of 14 days. So it was very quick.
How did that happen? Like,
So we
give us
literally
more
just
detail. How
we
does this happen?
reached out to Sphere. We posted ads like on Wise Hire. Like we just went full blown. Let's get everybody here because we think we're the best.
Okay.
And we quickly learned we did not have a replicatable process. And so what it actually did was drive our production down. So it wasn't this big move that we thought it was going to be. So first we had to fail. So then we actually ended up bringing us back down to 6 agents, which is around where we were. And then we realized that's when actually our business partner, Brett, found Sisu because we realized we had no tracking, we didn't have accountability, we didn't have a replicatable process. So we kind of restarted from the ground up. And then instead
Wow.
of bringing on 30 at once, that's when we started bringing in like a Hello Week, our version of Hello Week, a FAM camp is what we call it, where we can get that initial test run with an agent to see if they're a good culture fit. They like our systems, they can thrive, in our community that we have. And then we built much slower. So now, from then till now, is where we're close to being 40, one this year at 40, but we had to find that systematic approach to do it properly.
Okay, so I want you guys to take note of this because so many times we think we can just grow. So we go out and we hire, and if we don't have the systems in place, it's all going to fall apart. I remember once watching my wife lose a transaction coordinator, and I remember she broke down in tears because she knew she was going to have to take 90 days of her time to teach the new transaction coordinator everything. And now it's all in a system, right? It's all in a checklist. And if she was to lose a transaction coordinator, she could bring somebody else in and they could check off the boxes, right?
Yep. I think
I'm
it's
guessing that's how your business is today as well.
much more, luckily, because we used to try to remove me from being an ISA into being sales manager. And that was one of the biggest pickles we ran into because I didn't have a process for my day. I quite literally would tell people, oh, I'm just a cowboy. I jump in there and I shake the tree. I call these people. I text those leads. Like I was just kind of bouncing around everywhere. And so when we put somebody in my spot to do the same thing, it was impossible to replicate it because there was no roadmap for them to replicate. And so that
Yeah.
was the first time that we witnessed having to write down my day for day, turning it into an actual system, a process for somebody to follow. And that's when we hired our first successful ISA. So once we saw that, we realized we needed it for agents, we needed it for TCs, we needed it for every other role. We realized we needed that same feasibility of bringing somebody else into the company.
I've watched so many people that when I say, hey, you need a system, their eyes glaze over and they're like, okay, what is it? What do you mean? I mean, what's a system, right? So you just described a little bit of that, but as an ISA, you were doing all these things that you knew worked because that's what you were good at. And then you try to bring somebody in to duplicate that, and that's difficult. They can't duplicate who you are. So you set up a system. So let's talk about it. You just talked about I mapped out what my entire day looks like, but give us more details around that.
Definitely. So what my actual day realistically looked like was working the hot new leads to start, so handling all the new buyer leads that came in, handling everything that came over from the night before. If it's a Monday, we have about 60 open house leads, that are there. ISAs also call open house leads as well. Then midday, I would move into text blasting and voicemail dropping. So what I was doing with those was creating my own hot list that I could then dial later in the day. So I would do around 1,000 to 2,000 voicemail drops, which for anybody who doesn't know what a voicemail drop is, you can literally just drop a voicemail into people's phones. So you don't need to dial them. So I'd drop 1,000 to 2,000 of those, and then I'd follow that up with a different data with about 5,000 to 6,000 text messages. What I would then do later in the day was call through all the positive responses that we got from the text messages, from the voicemail drops, etc. So when I was dialing, I wasn't just dialing cold.
You were dialing warm leads, essentially.
I was creating my own warm lead list, which I learned from doing it set schedule because they said, how about you just call a bunch of realtors, through realtor.com? And I was like, this is a huge waste of my day right now. It's not really working. So I created a text blast. I'd send it out to 10 at a time, have my hot list, and I'd call those. So I just repeated it over here without knowing it was a process.
So how did you duplicate that? Now that you're no longer doing that, how did you get it to where the person who is doing that can do it effectively the same way you were doing it?
Yep. So a lot of it was recording because I had to quite literally hear and see what I was doing throughout the day. So one of the first things I did was just run a live Zoom that nobody else was on, and I recorded it and just made it my whole day. So it was quite literally like a 9 hour Zoom that would download to my computer. And I would skip through it and I would find all the, we call them DPAs, which would be a dollar producing activity. So
Yep.
I took all the items out of there that actually drove revenue into the business and then left alone the items that maybe didn't, work as well. Took it on a sheet of paper, wrote it out, made a Google sheet out of it. And then what I did was literally just do a day in the life with the new ISAs that came on to start because I didn't have total trust, in them just following everything. But once we found that somebody could quite literally just follow that system to a T using the proper scripting, actually being coached on what to say, how to say it is usually the most important part. They could just produce appointments out of nothing, out of free data from title. We could produce seller in-house appointments. So that's when we finally got to see it function and work, is when I could put some trust, into the other person following it.
Okay. So your first system you put in place was how to train an ISA.
Yes.
I heard you talk about having a program. You called it similar to Hello Week. Most people probably don't know what Hello Week is who are listening
Yeah.
to this podcast, but if you ever come to a Sisu Mastery or behind the scenes of a real estate machine with us, you will learn that. But that is basically like a 1 week, I'll call it Hell Week personally,
Yep.
where
I used to call it
where the
Hillary.
agents get to come in and see if they're a fit, right? You bring them in to see if they're going to put down the 200
That's what
SOI leads, right? I mean, their friends and family, put everybody in and then start making calls. Are you willing to make the dials? All the stuff that you're going to realize this person is a fit or they're not. There's no way to know that in an interview. So let's talk about your process now of that and getting an agent from, because I know you guys have taken a little bit slower approach to getting agents onboarded after bringing 30 in like that. And
Yep.
then
Yeah.
and then having to let them all go
Yep.
or seeing them all go. I'm not sure why they all went, but maybe talk about that. Like, what have you guys done to make it so that you can bring agents in and have them become successful agents?
Definitely. So one of the first thing we realized, we had to look at, why did we crash and burn? Like, why did bringing on 30 agents crash and burn our business? And one of the big things we realized, one, we didn't have a proper onboarding system, so they didn't know what to do. But two, it really brought down our culture because we weren't really vetting who was coming in. And culture is one of the most important things. And one of my old sales directors told me one time, he goes, I'm not responsible for your success, but I am responsible for the environment that you're successful in. And so I took that to heart and realized what we did was lower the environment that our agents could be successful in. So that's when FAM Camp, is what we call it, was born. And that's 2 weeks. So the first week is strictly training. So that's from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning. They go through a systems training and sales training. So it's usually 30 minutes and 30 minutes. And then they bump into 30 minutes of role play with the rest of the team. And so it was an hour and a half for them to start their morning. Week two would come along, and that's strictly, you just spent a week learning everything, go take action. So they were starting off with about 100 calls a day, which would ramp up to around 400 calls a day, which would include appointments, SOI. We would give them lead pond, like old buyer leads that they could call through. But the whole point was seeing if they'd even take action on the coaching that they were given. Our first FAM camp, we kept one person out of 12 that went through FAM camp. So this
Wow.
was the first thing that showed us, wow, originally we brought on all 12,
Mm-hmm.
but brought down the environment. So that's where on average now we'll keep 2 to 3 for every 10 that come through.
Two to three for every 10. So is it usually you pushing them out or is it usually them self-selecting to be out?
So we get both, honestly. So we'll get one or two people that just disappear halfway through, no text, no email, block our phone number, like just disappear. They're literally just like, I don't want to deal with any of this anymore,
Yeah.
which I'm thankful for because
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah. I don't want to make calls. Well, great. Please leave now.
exactly. This just isn't the right environment, for you is all it is. That's all I explained to them during FAM camp, is this is to show you the environment that you are going to be winning in.
So, what are the main things you look for that you want to see in somebody that you're going to keep?
A big one is drive. So someone that's willing just to push through all the little hurdles, to still get to their end of day goal. And honestly, one of the biggest ones we found is just being a problem solver. That's what most of this industry is. So saying like, hey, my system won't log me in, and then not telling us till the next day, all that did was just throw away a whole day of your fam camp. So you'll get the people that go, oh my God, my Wi-Fi is down. Let me call him right now, the second, to try to fix this or solve it or so I can get going again. And
Yeah.
you have some people who go, oh, well, my internet's out. I'll start dialing again tomorrow.
Use it as an excuse.
Yep. That's honestly the biggest one right there is just open communication and being able to problem solve with someone on the other end instead of feeling like you can't reach out to anybody and like everything is just burning. You
So do
know,
you intentionally take their dialer down to see how they'll solve that?
luckily, technology just tends to do that on its own, running into a few problems, things of that nature. So we don't typically need to do like you just run into problem solving anyways in this
Yeah.
industry every day. You run into little items. And so you'll see at the end of the day who hit their numbers and who didn't.
Yeah.
And when it's not a bad thing or a good thing. I sit them down. I just go, hey, it looks like we're off track yesterday. Why did we fall off track? And it usually will come back to, oh, well, my kid was really loud in the other room. So I had to, kind of stop dialing, or my computer was going slow. So I figured I'd pick it up tomorrow.
Do you have them come in the office when they're in this?
So we
How
haven't
do they?
before. We've done Zoom previously. The next one that we're running on the second will be our first in-office fam
Okay.
camp.
I think when somebody's at that level, it's extremely valuable to make sure they're in office.
Well, and we just got a big enough office for us to do it in. We just opened our biggest office. It's on the Lake of San Marcos. So we can finally hold about 40 people in one office building. Previously, we didn't have a big location like that. So
Nice.
we quite literally built our entire business off of Zoom and like little private offices through Regis. Like that's
Nice.
where our entire last 5 years have been until just a few months ago. We got our first big physical location where we can actually host all the agents.
Cool. Okay. So somebody now passes two to three out of 10. So 20 to 30% are going to make it through FAM camp onboarding. And then at that point, it's you passed. Now we're going to truly onboard you. What is that process? How do you manage your onboarding?
So we make it really simple. We have a 30, 60, 90, which I believe Spring does something similar. But so a lot of their onboarding is done in their first 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days, which should end up with them being in an escrow if they follow everything properly. So the first 30 days is really starting to understand your system more, getting your initial dials out, getting SOI on actual plans, not just getting them in the system, but getting them on actual plans that are running. And it's really just setting everything up for those first 30 days, getting inside of open houses. So now when your first 60 days come, kind of like fam camp, it's time to take action.
Yeah.
Like you should be in full blown action during those next 30 days. You should be doing, like we have an agent that averages 5 to 6 open houses a week right now. And he's in his first 60 days. He's
Awesome.
the definition of really running with the tools, that are put in front of you.
Yeah.
And we have some agents who are doing like one a month.
Yeah.
And very clear that they don't feel part of the environment and they kind of phase themselves out,
Yeah.
automatically.
Yeah.
And then the 90 days is where you're actually with a mentor on our team and like you need to be in appointments. Like if we're 90 days in and you're not in appointments, you're not meeting with homeowners, showing by your home, something's off.
How do you manage that process so you know where they're at in the 0 to 30, 30, 60, 60, 90, whatever?
So I actually meet with every single one of our agents on Mondays. And for our agents that are still in their onboarding, we spend our time going over their 30, 60, 90 checklist. They also have a once a week meeting with their mentor on the team, which really the mentor's main role here is to make sure they're on track on their 30, 60, 90, because that also gives the mentors a system that they can follow, when mentoring the new agent.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So we've gone through somebody comes in, they're interested in coming into the business to, okay, we're going to let them stay in the business. We're going to onboard them in the business. How do you manage your sales organization?
That's a fun one. So we use two systems mainly, which are two big ones. One would be Slack. Okay, Slack is like our end all be all for all communication. Everything goes in Slack. And the reason is because you can hold accountability to one conversation. You can't hold accountability to a conversation that's in five. Oh, well, I texted them this and I emailed them that. It just doesn't work. So everything stays in one place and you know exactly when something's done and when it's not. We also run Sisu as well as the big one. So when I'm going over our monthly numbers like a leadership team, I'm going right out of Sisu. We don't really use our CRM reporting, or we've done Google Sheets in the past, literally a marking down where I'd mark down agents hitting their numbers, and
Well,
not hit.
thankfully, we're no longer in Google Sheets.
Thankfully, we're out of Google Sheets. Thank God. I can't even tell you how many Google Sheets I had bookmarked at the top
Oh, I can imagine.
just for daily updates. They hit calls or they didn't. So now all I have to do is pull up Sisu. So we meet as a leadership team weekly and monthly. And I just simply have to report out of Sisu. So that holds my whole department accountable. So really like Sisu is my reporting for my accountability because if our Sisu's off, that means my department is off. So that's the number one way that we hold production accountable and keep everything in line.
So you're going through Sisu and team meetings. What about your one-on-ones? Tell me what that looks like.
Yeah, so 1v1s, I think it's one of the biggest boosts to our business that helped with a lot of everything because the agents feel a lot more comfortable and they know their numbers, which a lot of agents don't. So our Monday 1v1 is quick and simple. It's 15 minutes. If they want to have extra support, they can book with me outside of this 1v1. But if anybody shifts off track during a 1v1, we're no longer in the 1v1. Like the 1v1 is only Cisu. Like that is all we cover here for this 15 minutes. So the first 5 minutes, they share with me what's called their personal dashboard, which is where they're at to hit their own personal goal, not the team goal. So I've gotten everybody's permission if I'm allowed to hold them accountable to their personal financial goal, and everybody has agreed yes.
Okay, that is cool. And one thing that I don't think you made is obvious, which I know you do, you said they show up and they present to you their dashboard.
Correct.
The thing that many of you may not hear and catch when he says this is they present their business to Zach. Zach doesn't pull up and present their business to them.
Yeah. It makes it a whole different conversation, because I didn't used to do it that way until I got coached, around a different way. And it was a whole different conversation that was
Mm-hmm.
when you're presenting to somebody else their numbers, it doesn't hit the same way.
Yeah.
The agent sits there and they have to bring you their report card, their numbers. It's totally different. It's like the kid bringing the report card home to mom and they kind of hide it in their back pocket for a little bit. And,
Yeah.
then, okay, here you go. And you get a whole different reaction.
Okay, so you said I think you do three things in a one-on-one. One is their personal dashboard. What do they do after that?
So after that, we move into agent accountability, which we do two things. One, it shows their numbers. Okay, again, but we look at the entire year opposed to just the month. For personal dashboard, I'm mainly just focused on this month.
When you say agent accountability, are you looking at the agent accountability report in Sisu?
Exactly, the
Okay.
agent accountability report. And
Okay.
the biggest thing that shows in there is their current Cisu pipeline. So this is all the people that in our system, when somebody books an appointment, they click the Cisu link, which makes them, it means this relationship has started. Something happened here. So if I pull up Cisu and somebody has 12 people like in their pipeline, there needs to be a next step for all 12 of those people because they've taken the next step to work with us, which is book an appointment. So the biggest thing we do during that last 10 minutes is I quite literally look through every single person that is in their Cisu pipeline and I say, what are the next steps? And that's it. If there's this whole story that starts around, oh, well, they're moving from out of state and they're doing this, I go, hey, it's all good. That's all dandy. We can talk about it another time, but what are the next steps with Joanna? And that's all we need to talk about now. And it helps them really dial down. And a lot of the times it's, I don't know. And I go, great, that's what we need to work on. Is like, what's the next steps? And then other agents are super calm. Like, oh, well, she has an appointment booked for Wednesday. They have a signed agreement out right now. So you can see the difference in where you really need to coach with the agent. But
that's great.
10 minutes is spelled in their Cisu pipeline, just showing them the physical people that have taken the next step with them.
What CRM are you guys using?
We're using Lofty. We've been with Lofty for about 4 years now, back to when they were Chime.
Okay. So when somebody comes in from Lofty, is that at the point, do you guys do that at the point of that first appointment being set? Is that when you pull them into Sisu?
Yep. So leads come into Lofty from all over the place, from ISAs, from Title, from Facebook, Google, you name it. The agents will prospect, call, enter communication with that lead. Once the lead has booked an appointment with the agent, that's when they go and click the Cisu link and it shoots it over into Cisu. So quite literally, the Cisu pipeline is like their top 10, top 20 that they should be focusing on in their business.
Yeah, I like to say anybody they think they can get under contract in the next 30 to 60 days, right?
Yep. 100%. Somebody that's not going to transact for 10 years when their kid moves out, you want to have it in your database, but you don't need to have it
Yeah.
in Sisu in front of your
If
content.
they bring an appointment into Sisu and they meet with them and that person's not going anywhere, they should mark them lost, put it back in the
Yep.
CRM, follow up in the CRM until like Sisu is managing your business,
Yep.
CRM is managing your leads, right?
Yep. I like to almost say that this is the way I've explained in the past. Your CRM is like your savings account. It's all the stuff that will come in the future. Like, sure, like it's, all the potential, but like your checkings account is Sisu. Like Sisu, you're looking at your right now money that's coming into your business. So that's like
That's a
the
great
big
way
thing
to look at it.
that we use. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, so I think you said there were three things. So you go into their Sisu personal dashboard, they go into their Sisu personal dashboard, they then pull up their agent accountability report, and then what?
So the biggest one for the last 5 minutes, depending on how many people they have in their pipeline, it actually switches directions. And I ask them, what is the number one thing that I can do for you this week that is going to boost your business? Because I put a lot of time on my calendar towards the agent's businesses. It also gives me a really good idea on where their head's at. So some agents will say, I just need more leads. I need you to give me more leads this week, which shows me kind of where they're at, what they're thinking. Some agents
Which
go,
shows you their laziness, their
exactly.
entitlement.
I just want more leads. And usually the people who are asking for more leads are the people who've gotten the most leads and haven't converted the leads.
Yeah.
And so they're typically saying more, 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 more.
So, as a sales leader, I mean, there are a lot of sales leaders listening to this right now. How do you handle that? What do you say? You know they want more leads, but they haven't followed up on the leads you've given them. What do you say at that point?
So my biggest thing is people need to see things to believe them. Okay, you can say a lot, and of course coach and do all these things, but unless they physically see it, that's where they typically will now start to go, oh, and they have their kind of aha moment. So we have a few agents on our teams that convert leads on a higher level than I think anybody else, even in our market, let alone on our team. Like they have the right mindset for lead conversion, which realistically is aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Being super on top of it. So I'll quite literally just take a lead, a success story from beginning to close, and I'll put it in front of them. And it's the same exact type of leads that they're receiving and say, hey, this is not a call out. This is not me putting you down, but this person's on role play 5 days a week. They book with me 3 times a week, and they have 5 active escrows right now with the same leads that you're getting. So I go, is it possible that you don't need more leads and we actually just need a higher conversion on the leads that you already have?
Have you ever pulled out the Sisu ROI report and walked them through that?
I haven't. Yeah, that's one that we're
No.
actually just getting into, is starting to use a few of the other reportings.
Okay, because I've seen a lot of people have success with that. If
Okay.
you're, what's your biggest lead source?
Our biggest one is an outside company. We'll call it Great Media. Essentially, they're high level Facebook leads.
Great media. And how much is a lead on great media?
So we average after they make it through qualification and everything, after we drop off a bunch, we average around $8 to $9.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know how many leads you're giving them, and those are much less expensive leads than say a Zillow or something like that.
Yep.
But I've seen a lot of team leaders be able to pull out an ROI report and say, "Hey, I've given you $3,000 of leads in the last 30 or 60 days of this lead source. This is how many leads that is. This is the status of all these leads. And as you can see here, you haven't converted any of those. So I've lost $3,000 on you at this point, or maybe they converted on one of those. But the reality is you can actually show them I've lost money by investing in you. Would you continue to do that as a business owner?
Well, and I think you nailed it, because we just did that with our CEO dashboard. Now that Next has the CEO dashboard, we went through it with our accountant and filled out all of the month's metrics, and we shared it with the whole team, going, hey guys, just so you're well aware, like this is where we're at. Like this is absolute clarity on everything that goes on behind the scenes, because it's not like agents just don't know. Like a
Yeah.
lot of them just don't know that like it costs like $2,000 a month worth of systems to have an agent,
Yeah.
depending on what you're providing them. And a lot of them just don't know. They think it's like a few $100s. They see that realization, it really opens up their eyes a little bit. So I think that's super smart. It'd be really
Yeah.
smart to use the ROI dashboard.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, is there anything else on the sales side you want to hit on, Zach? And I don't know if you want to jump into other systems you guys are using and on the operations side, or maybe that's just not you, so we don't go there today.
Yeah, so I've had a trouble with dipping my fingers in other departments in the past. I'm really good at that. And over the last 6 months, I've been really honing in my skill of staying in my department strictly. But
Cool.
really, Brian, the number one thing that I can really say about our team and where we thrive, because we're not a Zillow team, we're not a Realtor.com team. We don't use any of the big lead companies that a lot of people in our market use. We have
Hmm.
Zillow Flex teams, and they're the three biggest teams here in Southern California, and they're our neighbors. They're right next door. And we actually get a lot of agents that come over from Zillow Flex to join our team, kind of moving away from it. And not there's anything wrong with Zillow leads, don't get me wrong, but our personal ROI on a Zillow lead was not good. It just
Yep.
wasn't good for us. So
Yep.
when we found such success with prospecting in our market, because a lot of agents don't want to cold call a $5 million neighborhood for some reason, that's really where we thrive as a team, is not in the passive marketing, but in more of the aggressive outreach. We're like, I want to get somebody before they even get on Zillow.
Yeah.
Like that's our goal. So our
That's
database
good.
includes to 2 million local homeowners inside of it, let alone all the way down to absentee landlords, to vacant properties, to expireds, to canceled, to just plain old blanket neighborhoods, of homeowners. So really data is really our game that we thrive in, because most agents don't want to hang out in the data world, and deal with sifting through it. So Sisu played a huge part in that, because we could actually see how many expireds do we need to call to lead to an appointment. How many appointments do we need to lead into a closing? Before, we were kind of just blanket hitting everybody all the time and hoping that
Yeah.
appointments through. But so,
Isn't it cool to be able, I think it makes a massive difference for a sales leader to be able to talk to an agent and say, hey, we both know that if you make 65 calls, you will get a closing,
yep.
right? Like, that's pretty cool,
It's
right?
a feeling. The big word I attach to is empowerment. Like
Yeah.
it really is. Like it should be empowering for somebody to know their numbers. A lot of people know a baseline number. Like, oh, I did, a few hundred calls that year and I got, 10 closings. And they kind of just have this guesstimate in their head, when you can quite literally go, I made 300 calls last month. That brought me 35 conversations, which led me to this many appointments, which gave me an 80% show rate, which led me sign 5 agreements, which gave me 2 closings.
Yeah.
That's a whole different feeling of power in your business than it is to just guess,
And
what it.
especially if you can see attached to that a conversion rate that lets you see where you can improve your skills,
Yeah.
right?
Our agents are competing right now without me even having to try on their conversion from conversations to appointment set, because some of our agents are all over the board. I mean, we have agents that, will quite literally get like a crazy conversion from conversation to set, because all they work is SOI.
Yeah.
They have this huge conversion. We have other agents who like strictly door knock, and they're obviously, their conversion's a lot lower,
Yeah.
because they're just having a different conversation. So we quite literally have people who are like door knocking and cold calling, trying to get their conversion to where like an SOI,
Yeah.
agent is, which makes it
Yeah.
really cool that they can kind of compare and gamify is the best word for that.
Do you have any numbers for people of like what is a door knocker or cold caller conversion compared to an SOI conversion?
Totally. So a cold call conversion that we're seeing on average is we're hitting about a 9% call to conversation rate, just kind of averaged, across the board. So every 100 calls they make, they'll have around 9 2-minute plus conversations is how we gauge our conversation, something that's 2 minutes plus.
Okay.
They have a 30-second call that just turns into, no, we don't want to sell, and it hangs up. That wasn't really a conversation. It was just a
Yep.
call. Now, from our conversation to appointment set, which is really our big one that matters there, our SOI agents will literally hang around like 30%. Like
Wow.
have this because
I've never seen that high. That's amazing.
now we have one agent who thrives with SOI, and the reason being she can do so well with her conversion, she's in their face weekly. Like they're not just getting a mail report every single month sent out. They get invited to an event every single month. They get 2 to 3 text messages every single month. They get a call from her every single month. Like
Wow.
she like runs her SOI unlike anybody other. And a past client to her is considered SOI. If you're a
Yeah.
past client, like you're now in my sphere and you're my SOI. So I've seen her do 3 events in a month to
That's
invite like her
awesome.
SOI to. So she has this like crazy,
Yeah.
conversion where cold calling would be much lower. You know,
What would cold calling be?
cold calling, you'd see it much closer depending on the quality of the rep, like 5 to 10, somewhere around there.
What
It's
about for a brand new agent?
for a brand new agent, surprisingly enough, we actually get really high conversions for them. And it's because they don't have the past track record of no's, or dealing with that. So we'll actually see them hang around right around that same pocket.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, for
I
like
see a
5.
lot. I see a lot that are down in the 1% range. So,
We've been
yeah.
there. Don't get me
But
wrong.
even at that, I know if I make 100 calls, then I'll get an appointment, right?
Yep, that's it.
Or in the case of your team, they know if they make 100 calls, they're going to get 5 appointments if they're cold calling, or if they're doing their SOI, up to 30 appointments for 100 calls, which
And
is
now
amazing, right?
I think the biggest thing to highlight on there is the time it takes to get to that point. And I don't mean as an agent, I mean as a team, like as a business. So I coach our agents every single day, like every single day. Every morning they have 8 a.m. to 8:30 role play.
Yeah.
Your minimum to be on our team, you have to do 3 of those a week at minimum. Most agents are on for 5, the one that have a bunch of escrows and are really running. We then have Monday, Friday coaching with Justin, where they're on with 11 to 12 with him for an hour. And then
You're
I
talking about just in time? Is that
just in time. Yeah,
okay?
just in time has been huge for us because they need to hear it from other people as well. And that's
Yeah.
honestly one thing that Justin showed me was I can repeat the same exact thing Justin said, and they'll take it differently from somebody else and hearing it from me every
Yeah.
single day being repetitive. And then I do a Wednesday hour sales training with them on Wednesdays, which is with me and the agents. So almost like literally every single day, they're mastering their craft, on being good on the phones. And so that's where we had to remove me as an ISA and put me as a sales manager so I could spend all this time with the agents. Like I've never missed a role play, and we've been doing it for about 5 months now. I don't think
Cool.
I've missed a single role play because I understand what that little 30
Did
minutes
you
of
start that when you came to Sisu Mastery? Is that when you started that?
no, we actually did it right before then. We've been aligned in a lot of ways. And what Sisu Master did was hone it in because I got to talk with Ben from Place. He had
Yeah.
an amazing section with you guys there.
Yeah.
And he got me to structure out the Monday through Friday. We were just hopping on and role playing 5 days a week. Now, Monday is intro. So we're just practicing our intros to the call. Tuesday, we do discovery questions. Wednesday, we do closes. Thursdays,
Cool.
objections. And Fridays, open house day, where we practice talking to the neighbors and talking to buyers that are inside the open house.
Cool. So was it a value to come to the Sisu Mastery?
I would say it's one of the biggest values that we've actually had in a long time. And I'll talk on that just for a second because I know it's kind of a vague statement. We've gone to a lot of events. We highly know that we need to coach ourselves to be able to continue coaching our agents. So we've been to a lot of EXP events, and not to put down any other events that are out there, but a lot of them was a lot more show off of like this is what's possible, where behind the scenes of a real estate machine that we did with you guys with Cisu and with Spring partnered, we left with tangible items like I filled up a whole notebook, which I've never done before. I'm not really a note taker. And I filled up literally almost a whole notebook on our third day there. And what we left was we were on the plane calling our business partner and our transaction team saying, hey, we need to start doing this. This needs to be starting to get implemented tomorrow. Like, so it left us with actual implementable, if that's a word, items that we could put into our business. So that was the big difference. There's like
Awesome.
learning goals, and then there's like actually having tangible things that you could implement, into your business, which was huge for us.
That's awesome. Well, I can tell you this, Zach. If I were an agent, I would love to be on your team because you're doing things right. So keep that up. I do have one last question. What is your average price point?
So our average price point right now is at 862, which I'm going to give a shout out to a few of our agents. They really wanted to push the luxury market. So we sat down and gamified with them. So last week we signed our first $9 million listing, everything ready to go. And then
Cool.
another agent just signed like a 4 million. So we're hoping to end the year, not hoping, we will end the year with a median price point of $1 million.
Great. So by knowing and intentionally going after that, you're going from 800,000 to $1 million average price point. That is one easy way to increase your closed volume, right?
100%. And that was honest. That was one of the biggest things we took from the behind the scenes event was our profitability of a business. Like we need to be profitable to be able to give the agents what it is that they need to be able to grow their businesses, aka grow the whole business as a whole. And so we sat down and just really looked at what are the few ways that we can boost our profitability, which you guys happen to just randomly cover behind the scenes of a real estate machine. And boosting your price point was one of the easiest ways. And
Yeah.
since we're such big data workers, all we had to do was swap the data, out. It becomes the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah, very cool. Well, it's been fun to see you guys just grow and to see your success, and I have no doubt you guys are just going to continue to crush it every year with all the stuff you're doing. So it's fun to watch. It's fun to be a part of. We're grateful to have you guys as a Sisu customer and to see you guys really leveraging the things that we bring to you at the highest level. So thank you for that. And if anybody wants to reach you, Zach, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Easiest way is going to be on my Instagram. It's just Zach, Zach, Zen Real Estate. So Zach Zen Real Estate. That's my main page that we do, for answering any questions and making contact. One thing I want to leave you with, though, before you go, is we had a big team meeting the other day where we brought everybody, and I thought, what is the best way for the agents to understand the power of Cisu? Because a lot of them just saw it as like the bright colors on the board, which was cool, but they didn't fully understand it. So to kind of backtrack it a little bit, I went through this whole thing on what is accountability. And we asked everybody, what does accountability mean to an agent? Quite simply, it all comes down to one thing, which is the highest form of self love that you can have is being accountable to yourself. And I think a lot of very successful individuals would agree with that. And so I think Sisu is that form of self accountability where you can literally just hold yourself accountable to your goal, which means Sisu really is a form of like self love, is being able to follow your Cisu. And so I
I
just
love
wanted
it.
to really highlight that. Like that was the big shift for us and our team was them realizing like accountability is self-love. Sisu is accountability. And that really kind of like, bam, eye-open moment where they could really see like the power that Sisu is bringing to their business.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Again, guys, keep Zach, follow Zach on social, reach out to him if you're like challenged with something, because Zach is a powerhouse sales leader in this industry. So again, Zach, congratulations on all your success. Thanks for joining us on the show. To all of our